Hey there, Skullhead Time Snags.
And I'm old Silky.
And I'm Allen.
And we are here for the third and final part of our Beatles mini series.
Episode 71, people.
Yes, we're calling this one Beatles Part 3 Revolution. So, before we jump into it, old Silky's got a stack of notes. But before we jump into that, I just want to remind you, hit the click pit, snagsandsilky.com. Check out all the links we got for your entertainment pleasure. Next time you're sitting around at home on a Saturday afternoon wondering what the hell to do with yourself, you worked all week, you couldn't wait to get home and rest, but then you have like a full day of doing nothing. And then you're like, what the hell am I supposed to do? Instead of trying for hours to find a movie on Amazon, just get on the ClickPit, and there you go. There's your shit to do. All kinds of shit to watch and read and listen to. Go to the Snags and Silky store and buy all our shit. Just back up the truck and buy everything.
Just buy it all.
Yeah. Buy our book. Like, create a bunch of different Amazon accounts and buy our Kindle book 50 times.
All right, that works.
Yeah. So that's it. Take it away, old Silky.
All right, so my first page of notes, you guys jump in. I'm kind of throwing stuff at the wall, but I wanted to go back to last week's episode. We were discussing the Magical Mystery Tour. Paul, I left this out. I just wanted to tack it on real quick. Paul's over in California, partying, getting stoned, and everything. And Ken Kesey had this bus that he painted all psychedelic, and then they were going to travel across the country handing out acid. And Tom Wolfe kind of encapsulated the whole thing in the electric Kool-Aid acid test. And so from that, Paul remembered how this happened in Europe. They had mystery tours for kids. So you'd have some chaperones in a big bus, and they would get all the kids to come, and they would go to a mystery place. And it was always a big surprise, usually ending up at the beach or something. Apparently, it was like something very popular in England and stuff. I don't know if you'd heard that, Alan, but
No,
what's that?
Sorry, I remember hearing about the mystery tour that I heard about that was similar to what they were going to do in the film. Was they would just get a bunch of people on, and I don't know if they called it a mystery tour, but it was some sort of tour, and they would always wind up at a beach somewhere, but they'd all get drunk. They would all get drunk on the bus. And
yeah, I think that's kind of the same thing. But so we'll pick up. They formed this Apple boutique, and they had all these grandiose ideas for Apple. You had all these hangers-on of people that showed up. John Lennon's really into LSD now, so he meets this guy named Magic Alex.
Apple was also a record label, right?
Not yet.
Okay. All right.
Not
You're
yet.
going to get to it. Okay.
Yeah. Magic Alex is just one of these con men that come along, and he's got this electric box with lights, and John brings him to the other guys to go, look at what this guy had. And it seems like that if you got into John's inner circle, that you could tell him anything and he would just go, this guy's amazing, and it just, the level of celebrity that they became, they just had these people all around them, and it's amazing anything ever got done, is what it seems to me. You had drugs, John, George, and Ringo doing LSD. Paul's hesitant to try it. You got morons like Magic Alex buzzing around with, hey, I'm gonna, we should do films. We should do, he's saying all this stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, let's make it happen. And so that's, all these this umbrella of the Apple company. They're going to do all these things, and that kind of starts a downward spiral with all the money and all the people in charge. Just a myriad of insanity.
Right. And preparing for this episode, it just occurred to me, this may have been Brian Epstein's saving grace. If he had survived, if he didn't die, he would have been the Apple King. He would have been running the whole show, I think. Right? This would have been right up his alley because he was running that record store.
Yeah, you know? I think. I think it would have. That's a very good point because, they stopped touring, and his attitude was, "What the hell am I going to do now?"
He could have run the Apple empire.
He may very well have been, a steady hand. Although Brian Epstein was drugged out of his gourd at the end there.
Because he had a lot of time on his hands.
Yeah. I feel like at that time, the late 60s, drugs had become the new thing. Right. And no one had really seen the long-term effects yet. And, by 1979, every single artist that was incredible had either been dead for 10 years or was dead or washed up, Go ahead.
And then John Bonham and Bon Scott right after 1979.
Yeah.
Just in case you're not done having your heroes die.
Yeah. I said 79, but I meant by 1980, including them. The drugs had taken their toll,
Sure.
So just that, I wanted to get all that out, but 1966, by mere chance, John, on a whim, goes to this art show that Yoko is at. And, at this point, John's at his most vulnerable. He's unhappy in his marriage. He's stoned all the time. Cynthia Lennon talks about John getting up in the morning, getting stoned, and sitting on the couch and just staring blankly at the TV for hours. They no longer communicated at all. Yeah. And I don't know if it's the fame and her having a kid and him, maybe, some people get married and go, holy shit, this isn't what I want. Yeah.
Well, he married her. It was the old traditional, I got you pregnant, and now I got to marry you. He did the noble thing.
Yeah.
And he was 5 years later or whatever. And,
he was
quite there.
He was just hitting every groupie left and right. Joan and other, famous women like Joan Baez. And, he was doing what you'd expect a young man with that sudden fame to do.
I wouldn't fuck Joan Baez with your dick. Let's just get that.
Hey, back then, you never know. When she was 21
I can take her lilting, singing, and
tell her not to sing.
God bless America. When she comes on and sings anything, if her songs were Small Animals, I would veer across the road and run them over.
Then how come you didn't put her on your list for this Killing Sacred Cows episode instead of Raisins?
Wow.
Raisins was one of the things.
I still hate
Joan Baez would have been a lot more interesting.
Even Raisinets? You don't like Raisinets?
No.
Wow.
Wow, it's terrible.
The worst thing is getting like a cinnamon roll and you're expecting all the fun and joy of a cinnamon, and here's a couple raisins in there. Chunks of glass would be more.
He hates raisins more than Joan Baez, apparently, because Joan Baez didn't make the episode.
No, that killing cows thing was not a topic. I just missed the email and didn't pay attention, and then
I was rabid. Rabid Mike's
10
idea.
Things that we hate, and I said, okay, I'll make 10 things I hate, and I'm still hearing about it. Anyway,
11.
So, John goes
11.
to this art thing, and here's Yoko with just climb up a ladder and look into a bucket, and it says light or some dumb shit.
It says
Yeah, it
yes.
said yes.
And
Yeah.
that really, turned
I
him
don't
on.
get it. I would have been like, okay, and I hate that kind of art. I don't. It's not art. It's somebody pretending. Oh, if you don't get it, then
Well,
I'm
art like that is, in my opinion, is always depends on the artist statement that's on the wall beside it that explains what it's supposed to mean.
like the
And
title or
no, there's usually, if you go to these galleries where they have that kind of stuff, there's a little piece of paper on the wall next to it with a few paragraphs explaining what it means. This is a
oh boy,
commentary on post-industrial transnationalist
some manifesto.
whatever. Yeah, and it's a banana nailed to a board.
Yeah,
You know
and
what
it
I mean?
says winter solitude, and
Right.
I'm
This
supposed
is a
to.
commentary of men's existential existence and
Yeah,
whatever.
I
So
would
you
have
read the
walked
if it's
out.
you just gotta have a really good artist statement, put all
Right.
your energy in that, and then just nail some random thing to the wall.
I would have walked out and never even met the artist. And here he gets completely like she took over like an octopus grabs you and wraps you up. And he's no longer able to see his friends or she just had him till 1980, till December of 1980.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was the mother that
Wow.
he was missing in his life. Alan, you were going to say something?
Oh, you took the words right out of my mouth, Snags. He, like I said in one of the previous episodes, he lost, his mother gave him up as a child, as a young child, and then he reestablished a relationship with her as a teenager, and she got killed. So he kind of lost her twice. And from that moment on, I think he was searching for a mother. And for whatever reason,
Cynthia.
It was Yoko. It wasn't Cynthia. It was Yoko. And and he, we can. I don't want to dive too deep, but I'm a Beatles John guy, all the way.
I loved. Yeah, his songs are my favorites.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I just, I've studied his life over and over again, but he referred to Yoko as mother. He called her mother. Wow. Around the house.
It's just sad to see somebody lose their self so badly. I feel that he did with her.
Yeah.
There's a YouTube clip that sums it up perfectly. Her kind of just being this thing that's in his life, and it doesn't really quite fit, is when he's on stage, and this is, I think, in the 70s, jamming with Chuck Berry.
Oh, at the 1969 Peace Festival.
Is that what that was? Yeah. He's on stage jamming with Chuck Berry, and she's standing on the stage, and they sound awesome. They're singing together, rocking and rolling, and she's just in there going, into a mic.
It's the Mike Douglas show.
Yeah. And halfway through, the sound guy just shuts off her mic.
Beautiful.
And that just sums it all up. It's like, just this appendage that was just glommed onto him, and I'm sure Sean Lennon would disagree with us. I'm sure they loved each other, but there was a definite kind of parasitic quality there.
Like, I love my dad, but I'll tell anybody he didn't sing.
So. Nobody told Yoko she couldn't sing, unfortunately.
So real quick, Yoko was Japanese. I don't think I ever really knew where she came from.
Are you serious?
I thought she was Vietnamese. I'm sorry. I've upset everyone.
No, I know you didn't upset me. You didn't upset me. It's just hilarious that you didn't know that. Anyways, keep going.
You don't like somebody, you don't really look into them.
Okay. All right.
I couldn't tell you where Justin Bieber was born.
He's Japanese too. You didn't know that?
Is he? Well, see, there you go. Justin Bieber coup, right? Something like that. No, so she'd gone to college and everything. She did have a daughter, but she was a real free spirit. And she had her sights set on John. And, her whole avant-garde thing just really captured John's imagination, I think. And so by 67, with Sgt. Pepper, seeds have been planted. I think throughout, you've got Paul like really trying to steer the band because no one else is.
Yeah.
You know, Ringo's not going to do it. George is a great guitar player, but I don't think George had the confidence yet to hey, we're going to do this. So I mean, you got 4 people sitting there and no one's in the driver's seat. Somebody's going to get in there. And Paul had so much creativity. I mean, everything Paul did was good. You know, Andy Summer and you know, the drummer in Police,
Stuart Copeland.
They hated that Sting had all these ideas, but dude, all those
ideas
songs were amazing. You know,
yeah.
At some point, you gotta. Well, that's a good song. You know,
it's better than you know the Andy Summers songs that would be on those albums.
Just
ranting.
I mean, yeah. So you know, so seeds have been planted. I think John's insecurity is just growing and growing. But meanwhile, hey, look, like Bill Wyman pissed off that the Stones are so huge and he can't get a song on the record. Dude, enjoy your money, you know.
You're in the Stones.
Yeah. You got chicks lined and you're in the Stones. I mean, that's the end of that.
That's the end of that. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, so John's insecurity growing. The band falls in with the latest guru, the Maharishi. And he'd given a few high-profile presentations on meditation. A lot of people, it was like the new buzz, the new thing at the time. The Beatles, the Stones, the Animals, Mia Farrow, her sister Prudence, they all went to his exclusive retreat. And so there's a thing that is in that Bob Spitz book, The Beatles. He would give a brief Hindu prayer, whisper a hand-picked mantra in their ear, along with advice that he or she was to never share with anyone. And it had been specially chosen to harmonize with your personal vibration, is what he told each of them. And then weeks later, when the novelty had worn off, Mal Evans divulges that his mantra was I Ing, and at which point everyone realized they'd all been given the same word.
That's hilarious. Well, he was also the Maharishi was scoping out the babes, and they didn't.
Well,
like
that's
that.
So Magic Alex shows up way into them being there, and Magic Alex had kind of lost his attention, so he shows up and starts picking it apart, and he's telling the guys, "Oh yeah, he's banging all these chicks." So there's a bit of controversy as to whether that was really going on.
No, I'm sure he was. All those religious groups. Yeah. It's always happening.
Well, that just all the hotties going to this shit. I mean,
yeah.
Sexy Sadie was all about that.
Yeah. I'll get to that too. But so the Beatles are at this retreat, this meditation, and literally meditate all day. And this starts to wear off. Ringo was famous for having stomach issues as a kid. And so he's, out in this wilderness eating all this curry. And he's like, I can't do this, And they're basically paying $400 to stay in these, this hovel, this cement barracks type thing. And no AC, all, roughing it, if you will. And so Ringo's getting antsy, but the meditating starts to wear off, and I would say some of that meditation, though, they get away from all the chaos of the city and they start gelling with being in nature again. And
Condor in the house.
merch. We got mugs. We got shirts. We got pens, maybe.
We got anything you want, right?
Yeah, we got.
You want it, we'll make it, right?
Yeah, we got Snags and Silky dinosaurs in the store.
$5.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for the interruption.
Checks in the mail. Thanks, El
Checks in the
Condor.
mail.
Nice job.
All
All
right.
right.
See ya, buddy. So I'm saying that meditation kind of opened their minds to the creativity back. The juices are flowing because they've had time to, woosah a little bit. And so they start writing. They wrote like 30 plus songs, and the whole group starts to merge together, more of like their on holiday type scene. And, we're going to mention songs like Dear Prudence about trying to get Mia Farrow's sister to come and join the daily festivities. But Ringo wants to get out of there. Paul leaves soon after, and the Maharishi felt that the Beatles were going to be his ambassadors to his plans of hosting these high dollar retreats where people pay all this money to stay in these meager surroundings.
Yeah, these religious leaders is kind of like politicians. They have to have cattle. They're not anything if they don't have a bunch of cattle. The people are the cattle. And he thought he was going to collect a shitload of cattle through the Beatles.
Which I think disgusted John, because he really, in the lyrics to Sexy Sadie, which was originally Maharishi, and George was like, "Oh, you'll ruin the guy. Don't let's change it, and only you and I will know what it's really." So they came up with Sexy Sadie, which Maharishi's Sexy Sadie. But you got to wonder if Magic Alex spreading those rumors, if that was, how much of that. I mean, how would he know? But
because it happens in almost all of those situations.
I think it did happen, but I don't think he saw anything or had any way of knowing.
Anyways, I'm sure it was true. Yeah,
I don't doubt it. And if he didn't do it, he should have, because it was all there. So, so the Apple Boutique, we'll get to that now. The Apple Films and Music, Apple Corps in general, is derailed. Chaos, drugs, infighting. People want to do this and that, and you show up, and some guys, Dennis O'Dell is in charge of the film side. He's collecting money, but they're not making any films. So it's like all this self-appointed, making the emperor's clothing is, here it is, and just out of control.
Stoned hippies trying to run a company. Hey, we're gonna have a company.
Yeah, and whatever happens will happen, man. Let's get high, and just awful. And I think I would say Snags and I both grew up in that kind of household, and just reading it or hearing about it, I'm just shaking my head. It's just such an incredible waste of money.
Well, the Apple shop, they wouldn't go after shoplifters. So they have this shop in London with all kinds of stuff, merch and stuff. And hippies would just come in and steal stuff. And, don't hassle the hippies.
Yeah,
man.
don't hassle, that's their journey.
If they're taking the stuff, I don't want to be materialistic. Let them take it.
Yeah,
that's a great way to run a business. That's just great.
I'd like to just be there and beat the shit out of somebody. God bless America.
This is you and I both had enough of that hippie crap.
Yeah, I can't do it.
A lifetime.
I can listen to the Doors and Janis and Hendrix.
I can listen to the music.
Dead on. I smell patchouli. I want to choke something. So that's all going on. Cynthia Lennon comes home from holiday, catches John and Yoko half dressed in the kitchen having tea. His marriage is in shambles. He really takes into her, like just leveling with her all the different people around the world that he's had sex with, all the groupies, just really went out of his way to hurt her, which is a shame. But John and Yoko, when they spent their first night together, they spent all night recording these loops and sound effects and all the nonsense that's on that album. If you want to bring that up, the Two Virgins thing.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it list the songs on the back? It's just unfinished 1, 2, 3, 4 to 10, right?
Yeah, it's really just side 1 and side 2.
So just for our listeners' sake, the album is called Two Versions, and it's naked John and Yoko on the cover, and it's just a bunch of noise.
Yeah. It's basically Revolution number 9
for a whole album
for 38 minutes.
Now, I have to.
And Alan, of course, has an original vinyl copy that he's holding up for us to.
Now, I know it's not your cup of tea, but if now's a good time to bring up Wet Shoelaces, I think.
Okay.
If you listen to Wet Shoelaces, it's not going to sound like the Beatles. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4. You know.
Right.
Alan's band Wet Shoelaces.
If there's no Revolution 9 or Two Virgins, there's no Wet Shoelaces. That's really. I can listen to anything.
I can too, but there needs to be some, for me, there needs to be some point to it. I have listened to some pretty fantastic things where even I'll surprise myself and go, wow, I should hate this, but I really like this. Because there's some a good bass riff underneath the keyboard crazy, or but the self-indulgent for 28 minutes and then somebody going coo, I can't do it.
There's I remember back in the day, you had this album. It was Electra. It was an Electra compilation album, and it was new Electra artists covering old Electra artists.
Yeah.
And on there, they had John Zorn supposedly covering the Stooges. TVI, and all it was just for like 5 minutes, and that was his cover of the Stooges. TVI. John Zorn
blasting saxophone.
I'm gonna have to say though, I think Alan is selling Wet Shoelaces short here. They're way the fuck better than Revolution number 9 and Two Virgins. I'm telling you that it's like Ween and Frank Zappa. It's good stuff. It's not just noise.
I'm just saying it was an early influence.
Don't sell yourself short by comparing yourself to Yoko Ono though.
When you're blown out on heroin and all you can do is tap a pencil, all that creativity is just stunted by the heavy amount of drugs, and then they play it back and go, oh my god, that's so cosmic, and it's garbage. It should be held underwater until it's dead. But I say that in the best way, because from that possibly you got Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention. You got
Frank Zappa wasn't influenced by the Beatles at all.
All these, Captain Beefheart. They did a lot of, abstract things, but they still had that blues-based. It still came from a good place.
They're real musicians, I think is the word you're looking for.
Experiment.
Instead of somebody who just bangs on pots and pans and makes weird noises. Frank Zappa was an amazing musician. Captain Beefheart was interesting because he had all the music in his head, and he surrounded himself by amazing musicians. And he would hum every part of every song and make each band member learn the part that he was humming, which is fucking wild.
He was a bit intense. So they're doing all this heroin. Life in general is just really stretching John to the brink. And like I said, he would stare at the TV for hours. Amidst all this dysfunction, Paul and Jane Asher, they're engaged, but things keep happening. She's got a movie or whatever. And Paul meets Linda Eastman, photographer. Now, Linda apparently she was banging everything that moved and taking all these pictures and stuff. So when she met Paul, she was really confident in herself and not just a fangirl chasing after him. I don't think that would have worked, but by him meeting somebody who was kind of like, oh, you should meet me, now that you've met me.
That's how both those girls snagged a Beatle. Is they had their own thing going on, and they weren't just drooling fangirls.
Exactly. Yeah, yep. That's what I'm trying to say. So they hit it off. So then November 11th, Unfinished Music comes out, 2 Virgins. November 22nd, the Beatles released the White Album. So they had managed in all this crazy, drugged out arguing and distance and the whole Apple thing going on. It's just incredible to me to read all the dysfunction that was going on and the arguing. Their love of music, they would go, okay, let's leave all that outside and let's make the White Album. It's amazing.
This is my favorite Beatles era. So they recorded my three favorite Beatles album, and we'll get to them. The White Album, and they recorded Get Back, which got released later as Let It Be, and Abbey Road, all in this era while the band was starting to fracture. But
it's like a plane on fire, though.
Yeah,
and thick smoke down the passenger seats, but they managed to create these,
in my opinion, making their best music. It's crazy.
Well, if you think about, since you say it that way, all that anger channeled into creating just some of the most timeless music ever. Is one. So the White Album, I would say it's almost like, each Beatle made their solo stuff and they blended it to make this album in some,
like Kiss did 10 years later.
Yeah.
There you go.
If you look
at it together, hey, we got our guest to mention Kiss.
There you go. Can I say one thing before you launch in?
Yeah.
If you look at the songwriting credits, there's no Lennon-McCartney. I mean, well, not the songwriting credits. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the lead vocals. Never mind. I'll shut up. But I'm sure, as Alan said, they started writing separately.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Even though they had the Lennon-McCartney publishing. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the White Album, I think, is John's song, Paul's song, George's song. And then Ringo sings one of my all-time favorite Beatles songs, Don't Pass Me By. But Alan, do you want to just go down the White Album roster?
Yeah, give us your review of the White Album, sir.
My review of the White Album. Thank you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I agree with both of you. As they were recording this. I think outside the studio was a mess, but inside the studio, that just went away. Like you said, it went away. The bullshit went out the window, and they just created my favorite album. I mean, this is just
the White Album is the album I grew up with.
Yeah,
it played constantly in my house.
Wow,
it's always any song from it. Any song is a good memory of my childhood.
If that wasn't a big enough endorsement, it was a huge influence on Charles Manson. Anyways, all right, Alan, take it away.
Yeah, and as you, I'm sorry to, I will get to it, but Silky, you said in the first episode, I believe, just talking about people who say they don't like the Beatles.
Yeah.
To me, that means, well, you probably don't like music, because if you look at the White Album, it's got every type of music you could possibly, rock, jazz, blues,
country.
Country, reggae, Obla Di Obla Da is pretty much a reggae song, really.
Interesting. I've never looked at it that way.
It's got that kind of a beat.
Yeah. I love the Wild Honey Pie Part 2, where it's like this old-timey ragtime. I don't know what you call that.
Yeah, hot jazz or whatever,
Yeah.
Cole Porter, or something like that.
Yeah, it's epic.
And instrumental, you've got the George Martin strings on Goodnight. You know, it's got everything. I mean, it's an encyclopedia of music. I just love it. Anyway, back in the USSR, kind of, you know, to open it, I believe this was their kind of Beach Boys-y type of a song.
Oh yeah,
you know,
yeah.
to, you know, that sort of thing. You know, Surfing USA sort of thing.
Exactly. I.e. Chuck Berry, but yeah, very
Yeah.
rocking.
Right. And that leads right into Dear Prudence. I mean, that's I love the transition, you know, the way the album opens. You know, you get the back in the USSR, and then, you know, the plane lands. It sounds like a plane landing or taking off or whatever, and then now you're in India asking me, a Pharaoh's sister, to come out and play.
Right.
So
yeah, bizarre.
Yeah. And then Glass Onion, which I love. This is kind of like I Am the Walrus Part 2. It's
Yeah, he name drops a lot of Beatles songs.
Right. There's no hiding anything. He's coming out and telling you, hey, look at this, look at that. You know, try and figure this one out. Oh, by the way, the walrus was Paul.
I knew it. I knew he was dead.
Yeah. We'll get to that too. There's a spot for that.
Obla Di Obla Da, like I said, it's to me, it's reggae. It's really kind of
and the line at the end, if you want some fun, take Obla Di Obla Da. There was a string of acid, I don't know when, in the 80s maybe, called Obla Di Obla Da.
Wow. Oh, that's cool. What I remember hearing Paul say, I think, is they were in a taxi, and the driver was Indian, and they asked, you know, they're just having small talk, and they asked him, you know, how's your day going? And the Indian guy said, Obla Di Obla Da. It was just, you know, that was his saying.
Oh, interesting.
Turns into a song title.
It's fantastic.
So yeah, the Wild Honey Pie. This is kind of the Wet Shoelaces track on the album, right?
It's trippy. I love the music in that. What are they playing? Like sitar and
it's very percussion-y, this one. Yeah. So it's probably a bunch of instruments. I'm sorry, I don't know.
I'm looking right now on to see if hold on. Vocals, acoustic guitar, bass drum, and other percussion.
Other percussion.
Other percussion. That was my
That's
answer.
as specific as they get in Wikipedia.
Yeah. Mainly, I know in Apple Studios they had all these different things just there. They dragged it out, and if it was there, they'd grab it, and you know, they were shoving everything they could into every song. So
right, yes, exactly. Empty the shelves.
So that's really just a jam that I think ended up, hey, let's throw that in there, you know.
Right.
There's a couple of those in here.
Exactly. Yeah. That's that was an interesting choice to throw in there.
Yeah, because that probably went on for 20 minutes, and let's take a minute of it and back it in there.
The continuing story of Bungalow Bill, just a John.
I would say this is Yoko's debut.
Yes,
on a Beatles album.
Yeah, I'm sure you love it too.
It's actually I really like that song. It's a fun song.
I love that song. I really love that song. I always thought it was a little kid saying the way he looks so fierce, and you know, and that's Yoko.
Yeah, and actually Linda is singing background vocals on this song as well. The two of them.
Is she? Okay.
Yes, she is. Yep.
Did not know that.
Yep. Oh man, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. I think this might be. If you give me a second here, I got to look at my spreadsheet. I know it's way up there. Yeah, it's my number 8. I think.
I believe Eric Clapton is all over this song.
Oh yes, that's his guitar solo. Correct. That's his guitar.
He did not want to play on it. He was intimidated, and George had to really convince him. And the other guys weren't taking the song very seriously. They thought it was a throwaway track. And then George walks in with Eric Clapton. He's going to play on it, and they all stood up to attention and started paying attention. Took us.
Clapton rings the guitar out on this.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing song.
The only other time that you heard a guitar like this bring justice to something is when Dwayne Allman sits in with Derek and the Dominoes and just brings the whole session to another level.
Him and Clapton jamming on that album is amazing, and the extra jams they add to the new release, just great stuff.
Yeah,
and there's it's uncredited.
On this album, it's uncredited. Yeah.
Right. But on the anthology series, there's an acoustic version, and obviously on the super deluxe box version of the White Album, it's
I think that stuff's in the playlist.
Oh yes, yeah, love the playlist. By the way, that was really good.
Did you dig that? Great. That's great.
Especially
a lot of unreleased rare shit in the playlist. Silky brought to the episode today. Yeah,
it reminded me. I always forget about this CD, The Love.
Yeah, that to me that is a love letter to all the Beatles fans.
It is, I love
it. After decades of whatever you're doing, to rediscover, that is a great. Yeah, so I had to throw that in there.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I always like coming back to that one. All right, so while my guitar gently weeps into Happiness is a Warm Gun.
That's one of my favorite songs on this whole thing.
I've played this acoustically on my guitar.
Nice.
It's just a fun song.
It's a very 50s doo-wop thing where they're all singing behind him
with the bang shoot stuff.
Yeah. When I hold you in my arms.
Yeah.
It's a testimony. Yeah, he actually saw that. He saw those words in somebody was looking at an American Rifleman magazine, and there was an ad that said "Happiness is a warm gun." John saw that and thought that was hilarious.
So some anonymous advertising executive can be credited for that song title.
I always saw that as an innuendo for having a cock that has been serviced. So go figure.
That's a better story.
It works that way too. Yeah.
And that's the end of side one in my mind, right? It's always to me, it's the album.
Time to cross the room and flip the record.
You got to go flip the record. And just a great opening track for side two when that piano comes in. Just love it. You just right from the get-go, this is a good song.
Martha, my dear.
My dear, about a sheepdog, Paul's sheepdog, Martha.
Yes. I think the dog that you see in Ram, the second McCartney record.
Could be.
That's a great album. I really like that. That's my
always has a
favorite Paul McCartney album.
Yeah. And I'm so tired again. One of my favorite John's. Every John song is my favorite John song. But
I can relate to this because I'm usually just drained by life in general and all the people in it. I come home and I'm just completely drained.
That's the thing, right? Right. When I heard, as a teenager hearing this song, I just liked the song, but now, as an older adult, you feel it. Yeah.
You've seen it all. You've dealt with every asshole you can, all kind of people that we've talked about this in previous podcasts where when you're young, you're idealistic and you think you're going to change the world. And then somewhere you get a little older and you think, well, I just want to make a living doing something I like. And then you get a little older and you're like, oh, I just want to not be homeless till I die.
Yeah, I just want a cold drink and a comfy place to sit.
Yeah. All right. And then the Animal Trio, Blackbird.
Oh.
The Piggies and Rocky Raccoon.
I never thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Blackbird, great Paul song. And again, years and years later, he comes out with, it was really about the civil rights struggle.
Which makes it even more of a beautiful song. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then now Piggies, again, a George song, it's a fun song, a great,
took a dark turn though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Manson got a hold of it.
Oh, right.
Yeah, Manson really stole a lot of shine from this record, but I like that I'm able to still listen to the White Album and not think of that.
Yeah, but you got to mention it when you're talking about. I mean,
sure.
this was their justification for killing killing the rich people. The piggies.
Yeah,
the piggies.
But I love the string, the strings behind the song, and the way it reaches a climax at the end, and these pigs need a damn good whacking, and it's just hilarious.
Yeah. And then Rocky Raccoon, I think kind of, goes with the continuing story of Bungalow Bill. That was John's version, and now Rocky Raccoon is Paul's version of an old time story about some character.
It's such a comedy in the lyrics. The lyrics are such a comedy where he comes in and the doctor lays on the table instead of Rocky. Rocky's been wounded. The doctor comes in and lays on the table and is talking to him, and it's just funny. It's the way.
It's also like Bungalow Bill. It's a lot of fun to sing along with.
Oh, sure.
One of my favorite tunes to torture my coworkers with when I'm singing at work.
And then Don't Pass Me By. Now you said you loved it. This is your favorite.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite songs on this whole record. Ringo, just such a great tune for him.
Yeah, they wrote this. This was a few years old, at least. This was an older song that they pulled out for him. Because I believe, he was. I remember him singing this, singing the lyrics to this song on one of their Christmas messages or something like that.
Really?
Back, yeah. Sorry, I can't pinpoint it, but yeah, this was an older song that they resurrected for him.
That's very cool.
Yeah. Why Don't We Do It in the Road? Awesome.
Yeah.
This is Paul getting back to the rockin'.
Yeah.
It was a big priority for him in this era. Let's get back to rockin'.
Yeah, I just hit. Yeah, he's a great screamer. Just a great screamer.
Yeah, he shreds.
They both are, but man, Paul can rock just as much as John.
Yeah, that song "I'm Down," he just drills it, man.
Yep. And just the transition, the segue from "Why Don't We Do It in the Road," just this nasty, let everything fly song, into "I Will," one of the most subdued, beautiful, love songs, I think Paul ever wrote. And this song, when I got the deluxe version or whatever, or anthology, this took like 70 takes.
Yeah, it's insane.
Right, which is, wow. It's such a simple song, you think, but he really wanted to get everything perfect.
And for me, the tempo on the record, to have two slow songs right next to each other at the end of this record, I actually know people that flip the record after "Why Don't We Do It in the Road?" Like they just would skip.
Wow.
And I'm a purist. When I listen to the Beatles, I listen to every song except for Revolution Number 9.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah,
same here.
Julia is just John and his guitar. That's it. There is nothing else.
Now, is that a song to his mother?
Yes, it is. Exactly. Yeah, he's singing to his mom. And it's the only time. It's the only time that it's just John on a Beatles song.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty with just Paul, but this is the only one with just John.
Yeah.
So, and it's just a great way to end it. I love the way that this record ends.
Yeah. This whole record is flawless to me.
Yeah.
Long, long, long is not one that I.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like the vocals are too low.
Do we want to start with Birthday?
Well, okay.
Yeah, no, I'm just mentioning, but
Yeah.
go ahead.
So, yeah, the second disc, Birthday. Yeah.
Rockin'
Hey,
tune.
we're
Another.
we're the Beatles. We'll rewrite Happy Birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why
And
not?
we're gonna rock it.
We'll
Yeah,
rock it, yeah.
tremendous. And I think Yoko's singing the song, the word birthday.
Birthday, yes. Yes, that's Yoko again. Yep. Your Blues, I love. This is one I may be the only song where all four of them are just maybe. Yeah, I think it's the only one where all four of them are playing kind of live all at the same time, without any other overdubs or anything like that.
Yeah,
they're just playing a blues song, which is great. It's a John song. He plays this on that Rock and Roll Circus, that Rolling Stones Rock and Roll Circus, in a band that he named
Blues,
Dirty Mac, with Eric Clapton, Keith Richards,
John Lennon,
played bass, yeah, and
Mitch Mitchell.
Mitch Mitchell, right? Yeah, great version there too.
And what if they had done something?
Holy wow,
shit.
That would have been wild.
Yeah. Mother Nature's Son. Paul was inspired to write this by Nat King Cole's song Nature Boy, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah. I have a bunch of Nat King Cole. That's I didn't know that.
I love Nat King Cole's voice. I think there's almost no comparison to
it's the voice of Christmas, really. When it's cold and Nat King Cole. I mean,
yeah. So Mother Nature's Son, another great Paul song. I mean, are there any bad Paul songs? I don't know.
Not in the Beatles.
No, not in the Beatles.
He saved those for afterwards.
Everybody's got something to hide except me and my monkey.
Rockin' song.
Yeah, just kick ass. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
I just love that song. It's great. Wow. It's nobody knows this song either. It's really one of those deep tracks.
That's a great one.
Yeah. And then Sexy Sadie, we've been over. That was about the Maharishi getting naughty. And then Helter Skelter talking, bring back Manson.
It's also this is probably the most rockin' song on the album.
I think this is where, like we had said, they channeled all the frustration, all the anger. They wanted to just shred. And this
Get back to the Hamburg nightclub amphetamine fueled madness.
Yeah, this was a jam that they just went for, and
to me, this is Led Zeppelin.
Yeah,
this is the Led Zeppelin song, and I think that Led Zeppelin should have covered it.
Right? I mean, it's cool that Motley Crue did.
Yeah, but, aren't you satisfied that Motley Crue covered it? I mean, come on.
Everybody,
come on, man, the Crue.
Pat Benatar covered this. I mean, everybody.
Did she really?
Yes, she did. Yes,
I didn't know that.
But the other thing, now this song, I mean, Charlie Manson, thought what he thought, but in reality, Helter Skelter was a simple ladder slide ride at a fair, like a carnival, that they would go to, in Liverpool or whatever. They would set up these carnivals. And Helter Skelter was just a what do you call it? Like a circular, stair, a slide that you would just go down, and that's what the lyrics say. When I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide. It wasn't about killing.
No, obviously not. You have to be a drug crazed, psychotic hippie to.
You got to be a real asshole.
Piggies, I can see how they interpreted it that way. That's pretty clear. But this one, it just sounded badass. So they made up we need the good soundtrack for stabbing people. Let's go with this.
Helter Skelter is also kind of like, let's turn everything upside down.
That's what, he was going to do, is start some kind of race wars and then take over, or something insane like that. So, Helter Skelter seemed like a good title, I guess. I don't know.
Sure.
It's a great song, though, if you
Great
forget about all that.
Yeah. Long. Yeah, that's George. Again, I like you said, Silky. I mean, I don't think it's one of George's best.
No, it's just like when you hear it, like I find myself trying to figure out what the hell he's saying.
Yeah.
And I do know the lyrics, but it's like the lyrics are so low in the mix. I can remember as a kid turning my mom's stereo up as loud as I could get it,
Right,
to read along with the lyric, because you had that poster that had the lyrics, and
sure. Yep.
and I'd be like, God, what is he fucking saying? I remember just always had a problem with that song just for that,
Right.
But
and
it fits with everything. It's fine.
Right.
I would leave it.
And it's the end of the that side of the record.
Yeah.
So, all's good. And now you're flipping over to side 4, and buckle up. It's just so Revolution 1. There's 3 versions of Revolution. There's this version, which is a slow, bluesy type, version.
And I think they did this first when they were recording it, and then they kicked it up to the version. Huh?
I was going to say, as far as the version you were just about to mention, the faster single version, I remember hearing somewhere that they recorded it for some friend of theirs who was a politician was going to use it in his campaign. Did you ever hear that story? Tell us that story, Alan.
Wow. Yeah. It's pretty much, I don't know that I'll be able to expound more than you said, but yes, it was, John was inspired to write it for this politician, but then, this is where
he couldn't use it.
Yeah, there was something happened and they did not use it. Right.
Yeah. But it was I think the sped up version was for their
politician turned it down.
Moron.
They gave him
politician. You get in that business, you don't have a high IQ anyway. So
he turned them down. Right.
Yeah.
So they just released it for themselves.
Great song. Especially the fast version, but this is good too. The fast
version is the best.
Yeah.
And then there's Revolution 9, but we've already.
This has nothing to do with anyways.
Honey Pie. This is the like the Cole Porter throwback.
Yeah.
She was a working girl.
Very Hollywood blues kind of thing.
Yeah. Paul, it's just Paul being, creative and sounding good to me.
Yeah.
It's Paul would just do anything. He was kind of like the Midas touch. Savoy Truffle. Now here's a great George song.
Oh, love that one.
And now this does also involve Eric Clapton, because the truffle part is about, he's basically singing about a box of chocolates.
Right.
Eric Clapton was addicted to these chocolates, right?
He had a lot of tooth issues because of it. And this is George, I guess, busting his balls.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
All those desserts and stuff. I love it.
You're going to take my wife. I'm going to make fun of you here.
Right. Damn straight.
That's heart-wrenching. That whole story. Layla.
Just endless. And they stayed friends.
That's crazy.
It's bizarre to me. But when, George probably had over 10,000 women.
Yeah, he it's not like he didn't have any
come on
fine selection to choose from. Sure, I'm a Beatle. Take her. My
Patty
Rolodex
Boyd,
of
though.
1,000 other
Patty
women.
was sexy as hell.
Yeah.
I'd have thrown some baby batter at her.
There you go.
Say. But
you can still dig her up and do it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, Cry Baby Cry. Great song. I've back in the day I used to play this on the acoustic guitar.
That's great.
Really fun song to play.
And then the next song is Good Night. Well, that's a good song.
Yep.
Ringo.
Yeah. least
Yeah,
on my
spring-
playlist, that's how it goes. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead, Alan.
It's all good. Yeah, we can. I mean, we've discussed. Yeah, Cry Baby Cry. It does nicely segue into Revolution 9. I'll give you got to give it that.
Mhm.
Because if you listen to it, all of a sudden Revolution 9 just kind of takes off. But this is just John and Yoko doing their experimental 2 versions thing. There's no sense to it, really. It's just
I know they
soundbite.
begged him not to put that on the record.
They did. Him and Paul had a big discussion, if you want to call it a discussion about that. But John, I guess every time they put their wangs on the table, his was the longest.
Mm-hmm.
He won. Always.
Well, it was, if you go back in time, it was his band originally.
Yeah, it was
right?
his band.
Yeah.
So he got his way there. Now, if you the whole thing, if you play it backwards, it says "Turn Me On, Dead Man." I'm sure you know.
Right. Apparently.
But then, so if I may, real quick story. When I first got this album, and I heard Revolution 9, and it just blew me away. My best friend at the time, I invited him over, and I said, I bet I can really scare the shit out of you. And he's like, yeah, sure, bring it on. So I pull the shades down. I make it as dark as I possibly could.
Nice.
In my room, and I put on Revolution 9. He didn't last 10 seconds. He's like, let me out. Let me out.
Let me out. That's funny as hell. I love it.
Yeah. And then Ringo wraps it up. I mean, this may be the best closer to an album ever done. Again, it's the Beatles. Good night. Just what a great way to end. This long, double album of every kind of music you could ever want to listen to, and he's putting you to bed. He's tucking you in.
I think anyone who's had children has played that for their baby at some point. I have.
Nice.
Good stuff, though.
If I could say one other thing about this album is there was also a lot of discussion about whether it should be a double album or should it just be. George Martin specifically wanted to condense it into one really great album.
Yeah, amazing if he'd done that.
I mean, it could be about 8 minutes shorter, I think.
So, yes, we know Snags. Understood. Anyway, but I've done that for you, Snags. I took it upon myself, as long as I got that spreadsheet done, ranking every song. I made my single white album playlist.
Oh, sweet!
One album. It opens with Helter Skelter. How about that?
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
So, yeah, that's how psychotic I am.
Sure.
That's why you're the Beatles guy. Oh, by the way, his nickname is Beetle Bailey. Obviously,
Bailey,
yeah.
Sure.
Alan Bailey, Beetle Bailey.
It fits.
Yeah.
So the White Album comes out, but we did not mention in late '68, Lady Madonna and Hey Jude come out as singles. These weren't even on the album.
Yeah.
And
right.
I always loved Lady Madonna. The pounding piano is actually taken from a Humphrey Lyttelton song from the 50s, a song called Bad Penny Blues, which you should definitely check that out. It's the exact same pounding piano opening, and Paul lifted that for Lady Madonna.
That's another fun one to sing along with, too.
Oh, yeah. And those were non-album tracks. And then Hey Jude, as well as Get Back and Don't Let Me Down, were singles that really should have probably been on the White Album some way, somehow,
Get Back fits perfectly on Let It Be.
Their practice was always release
but
singles.
They were before.
Yeah, they always released singles ahead of the album and kept them separate.
The fact that they can drop these masterpiece albums And oh, by the way, here's some other songs that are going to blow your mind. It's just, not on the album. It's just amazing.
Yeah, Lady Madonna. Paul was trying to be Fats Domino. That was his Fats Domino song. I remember.
Kicked Fats Domino's ass out the fucking park with us.
And then Fats Domino covered Lady Madonna. If you've ever heard that.
No shit. I gotta look that up. I bet that's great.
Yeah, it is great. Hey Jude, that's their biggest hit single. It stayed at number 1 for 9 weeks. I like the first 4 minutes, and then when they get to the na na na, I may skip it, but
I see. I think as a kid, I couldn't wait for that part.
Right.
I like that song. It's also worth noting that, Mustang Sally. Give me the guy's name. I'm drawing a blank.
Mitch Ryder.
What? No, the guy that did Mustang Sally. Now I got to look it up.
Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels.
No, the guy that covered "Hey Jude" with Dwayne Allman. I know him because I listen to him all the time. I'm drawing a blank.
Wilson Pickett.
Wilson Pickett was talked into covering this song by Dwayne Allman, who was a session player on Wilson's album at the time. The producer, he brought it up, and he's this just scrawny white hippie kid in these sessions rocking the guitar. And he's like, hey, man, there's this great new Beatles song all the kids my age are listening to called Hey Jude. We should get Wilson to cover this on the album. And the producer's like just laughing him off, blowing him off. And I go, and they all take a lunch break, and Wilson's staying in the studio to, mess around on the instruments and just hang out. And so Dwayne stays with him and teaches him Hey Jude. And when they all get back for lunch, they start playing it, and it gets on the album, and it's Wilson's version was a gigantic hit.
Yeah.
So let's get back into it. So with almost no input from the Beatles at all, Apple Films begins working on a full-length Beatles cartoon, and all they asked the Beatles to do was to submit 4 original songs, which were contributed to the soundtrack, and then the guys pop up at the very end with random ad-libbing or whatever at the end of Yellow Submarine. Now for the playlist, I want to say in late 90s or 2000, they did a Yellow Submarine's song track instead of soundtrack, and it was all the songs that were in the movie as well as the 4 songs that the Beatles contributed. And it is a much better soundtrack than the George Martin instrumental stuff and the 4 songs. And that's what I included in the playlist.
Yeah. Yeah, that song track. Yeah, I was really happy to get that song track. That came out in 99.
99. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was trying to look for. Okay.
And that was I think it was the first time you could get the really good recording of Hey Bulldog.
Yeah. They tweaked it. It was it was such an epic release. I was so happy to have that because before you had this CD that had all this George Martin stuff, orchestra, and John hated it. He was furious.
I don't have that orchestrated crap in my Beatles playlist at all. I just have the songs from the.
It's just so dry, and
Well, it's background music. That's what it is. It was background music for the film.
And to me, it's not. You and I, Alan, both mentioned the instrumentals that were on Hard Day's Night and Help. That I enjoyed those. That were in the movies as soundtrack, but then you get to Yellow Submarine, and those are just I could never get through those.
Well, they mixed them. They intertwined the in the earlier albums. It wasn't just one side of all.
Yeah, you just never put that side on.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably the cleanest vinyl I have.
Right. It was like an EP. You just listen to one side. But so January of '69, they're limping along as a band. They're going back into EMI Studios with a film crew in tow. They worked on a series of bluesy impromptu jams in the daily sessions, and this footage would eventually be Let It Be.
Can we have Alan review the Beatles songs from Yellow Submarine real quick, though?
Okay, it's just 4 songs.
Yeah, hip us to your thoughts on those 4 songs.
The Yellow Submarine songs.
Yeah.
So there's obviously Yellow Submarine. You're right. That was from Revolver.
Yeah, great tune.
I mean, Hey Bulldog is one of my favorite Beatles songs.
That and All Together Now are hilarious.
All Together Now, that's a great. Yeah, my kids love that song. You know,
it's like All Together Now is so British. It's such a everybody all together, and they just keep
right.
jarring you with,
And then you've got the 2 George songs, which are phenomenal. I
love It's All Too Much.
It's All Too Much.
Love that song a lot. The guitar in that, everything.
Yeah. And that actually ends the film. Right. That's the last song in the film, where everything comes together. And the other one is Only a Northern Song. I like it. So, this is George railing against the publishing deals and and all that.
To me, that song dragged with the other 3 were so fun.
Yeah. And
then Only a Northern Song was kind of, even as a kid, I just didn't get it.
Yeah. Oh, exactly right. I had no idea what it was about. Right. So, I think those is that it? I'm not even looking at that. I'm not even looking at the album.
It was those, and then the songs that were in the movie were from, you had Eleanor Rigby and all the
in the song
things throughout, Nowhere Man, and
it looks like they, according to Wikipedia, they threw All You Need Is Love on there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that
we talked about that in the last episode. So
so like I was saying with Let It Be, that's now on Disney Plus after 50 years. What's funny is because of the Allen or the Peter Jackson film Get Back, the rooftop concert was available. And I think because Let It Be has actually finally been released, that's now taken off. Because I was going to just watch the rooftop concert today, and it takes you to Disney Plus, and then it takes you back to the home screen that says it's no longer available.
Wow!
And I'd never watched whatever they had, but I'm assuming it's that whole bit that's in Let It Be. So,
probably, yeah.
But so Yoko just has complete control over John. She's inserted herself completely, literally telling George Martin certain takes aren't good enough. Coming into the control booth, never leaving John's side, singing backup on the White Album. To this day, among bands, and Alan, you can probably attest to this, any overbearing girlfriend is referred to as Yoko. That has to continue on.
I was in a band, and one of the members brought his wife in, and it was okay at first. She had a couple songs, and then before we knew it, I was singing 2 songs. She was singing 7.
Oh my Christ!
Man.
That was my Yoko right there, and that was the end of that band.
It's amazing though. It is astounding because you think about relationships have been around for thousands and thousands of years, and this tiny Japanese woman has completely taken over that role of anyone trying to come in uninvited is just instantly compared to her.
Yes, you got it right. Yes,
it's incredible. And so, like any new relationship, John just wants to hang out with her, sniff heroin, make sound effects, tape loops. Yoko's just pushing him out of the band in her own way, just leaving, tilting everything for him to just gently kind of drift away, which I think she did expertly. Yoko was resentful and scornful toward them. She found the band childish and as different as it seemed to mainstream ears. To her, the Beatles had nothing daring about them. She capitalized on John's lingering doubts about his creativity and self-esteem. She's in his ear telling him what to do, how to sing, and the rest of the band just hated her. But if you watch Let It Be, you can see the look of a serial killer on Ringo's face. And there's actually a photo of him resting his head on the back of the wall in the sound booth, just staring off like he would rather be on fire than sitting there. And Yoko is like at his elbow, and John's got his feet up on the console. And she's just inserted herself in everything.
Go to the bathroom with him.
Yeah. She just would stand there, Paul and John are trying to discuss a song. She's like right there. And I just cannot imagine how you could not go, hey, what the fuck?
It's a good song, but what it needs is some atonal shrieking. That would complete the composition.
Ringo did confront John about it. He said, John, what's going on? Yoko's, she's always here. She's never, not with you. And John's response was, well, when you go home at the end of the day and you see Maureen and she says, how was your day? You have to explain it to her, and when we go home, I don't have to explain to Yoko anything. She knows exactly what's going on. So, I mean, this is what he wanted. He told George Martin, as I have a right arm, I have Yoko. God, she's part of it. They were one person. They were literally.
It's awful. It's just so awful.
As I have millions of dollars, so does Yoko.
So Ringo leaves the band. He's the first one to say, fuck this, I'm out. A few weeks go by and they send a telegram to have him come back. And then George leaves the band during the Let It Be sessions. And Snags, you want to tell that story? You were.
Well, I mean, it's not a very long story. He leaves the band and then, not showing up at the recording sessions, and so they send word to him that he will be swiftly replaced by Eric Clapton if he doesn't show up. They called his bluff, and he showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and George made some demands that they would not do the concert that they were gearing up for. Even in Peter Jackson's Get Back, apparently they're jamming and kind of figuring out some songs that are going to be new songs, but the end
you didn't want to
game
do
at the time was they were going to do a concert. They were going to play live somewhere, and George hated the idea, did not want to do it. And I heard when he came back that one of his demands was we do not do a live thing.
Does this story have anything to do with the rooftop concert? Was that a compromise that they ended up doing?
No, that happened. That happened organically. So when they did Hey Jude, they played at Twickenham Studios, and they actually had a bunch of people there, and they played in front of them. And there's the video to Hey Jude. Is them playing live for the first time. So
they were going to do a live concert at a venue somewhere. That's what
they wanted to do. Hey, let's go out on a boat and we'll have the boat full of people. Like, that's too crazy.
Sex Pistols will do that in about 10 years.
Right.
They'll do
somebody
God
will
Save the
get
Queen
knocked
going
off
down
the
there.
boat and drown.
They were going to do it at the pyramids in Egypt. They had a whole bunch of
that would have been badass.
Different ideas.
Grateful Dead later.
The problem, I think, with any idea they're remembering the crazy, the screaming, and and they're like trying to figure out how can we do this where this doesn't happen. I just don't think. I think it would have taken.
That was the only way to do it.
Well, but I think it would have taken the mid '70s possibly, where people settled the fuck down. Bands like Led Zeppelin and those were filling arenas, and the Stones all through the '70s play, and they were able to be heard again. So again, I think the industry caught up with the bands, and you had better sounding arenas.
That's it. Yeah, it wasn't that people settled down. It's just you had better sound, and you had better sound. The screaming girls can't drown you out.
Right, but again, you go to a concert now, and people don't sit there and pass out and all that shit.
There was only one Beatles.
Exactly, and there will never be another band to have achieved so much in 7 years. Is just astounding to me. It just never happened. But so George comes back amidst all this. March of '69. You've got this whole issue with Alan Klein. And I mentioned Lee Eastman is Linda's father. He's a lawyer. So Paul wants Lee Eastman to come in and help dissolve Apple and all the legality it's unraveling. And they're like, we have to deal with the walrus in the room. We have to figure out how to get all this behind us. And so you've got this concept. Alan Klein comes in, and George, John, and Ringo are like, we want Alan Klein. He's gonna badmouth all these and do our dirty work. And Paul's like, we don't need that. Lee Eastman is an established guy, and John sees this suit and tie guy and just wants no part of it.
Plus, if he's Paul's woman's father, it's just a conflict of interest, really.
Yeah, but Alan Klein's this nasty New York thug. So like I was saying, is the Beatles start involving themselves in other projects. George puts out Electronic Sounds, his first solo album. Ringo does a movie with Peter Sellers, The Magic Christian, which is entertaining. Paul produces Mary Hopkin, her Postcard album. Paul wrote that song that Mary Hopkin did. Those were the day.
Goodbye.
Those were the days was Archie Bunker. Those were the days.
No. Now I got to look it up. It's Mary Hopkins. Paul wrote the song, and she had a huge hit and was noted, but he helped her do her album, and then like the American version had this song. Let me just type her in. I had the name, and now it's gone.
She did do Those Were the Days. It's a different song than All in the Family.
Yeah, Those Were the Days. Yeah.
Not the Archie
Those
Bunker
were the days,
song?
my friend.
Not the Archie Bunker song.
Yeah, fucking Snags. Just
never be a man like Hoy but Hoover again.
Yeah, different song. So John and Yoko finished production on an avant-garde film for Austrian TV called Rape. And it's like anything to repulse and drive away that which kept them from poverty. They were so angry to continue the image of the Beatles, and Yoko's just twisting John. Let's do a short film called Rape. I didn't even want to see it. I didn't know about it, and I'm like repulsed just at the thought of it. But so all that chaos is going on, and they release Get Back and Don't Let Me Down April 11th of '69 as single. And like we were saying before, they're pretty much done with each other, but then they come together and do a song, and it's fucking amazing. Consistent.
God, one of my favorite Beatles songs. Yeah.
And so they had Get Back and Don't Let Me Down from the Rooftop concert they did that's in Let It Be, but they took those, and that was a single in April of '69. And just as the fans, maybe you're hearing or seeing this crazy shit, but then here comes another Beatles track, and you're like, oh, thank God, this is still good, and so several months of Apple subsidizing cleaning house.
Well, it looks like. Oh, I'm sorry. The video froze. I'll shut up.
Wow. So the vicious infighting, Paul on one side, George and Ringo and John on the other. All these contracts and entities had a hand on the Beatles. John and Yoko host a bet-in where they have like 60 reporters at a time, night and day, sitting there. And it's just a freak show.
My favorite scene from the bet-in is when they're doing that to protest the man, and they get up to let the maid change their sheets.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah. Can you finish changing our sheets so we can get back to protesting the man? Thank you.
It's so hypocritical. They just crave the spectacle and the shock value. And again, you just want to slap this woman repeededly. Or
slap John. Tell him to wake the fuck up.
Wake up. Well, it's the drugs. But despite all the drama and the bullshit, again, the single manages to be released in May 30th of '69. Ballad of John and Yoko and Old Brown Shoe, both great songs. I love George's Old Brown Shoe song.
Yeah.
But Ballad of John and Yoko is almost word for word what happened when John and Yoko got married.
Yeah.
And then it's literally John and Paul in the studio jamming this out. Paul's playing the drums, John's playing guitar and singing. And it's just an astounding song. And all the arguing and the at each other's throat, but then let's make a song, and they could still do it. So it's so hard to know their back history, what's going on, but they're doing these great classic songs. I just think if they had taken a hiatus, hey, let's just 2-3 years and let it all settle.
Yeah.
That had clearer heads may have prevailed, but
they were on an up. A lot of bands, they break up when their creativity just kind of slopes down and fizzles out. These guys were on a serious upswing.
Yeah.
Musically,
they were on fire, and I really think
albums are amazing, and the singles.
I think a lot of it was Paul's creativity and John fighting to keep up with him.
Yeah.
It's like when you're playing pool with somebody that's really good, and you start making better shots or something.
Like Gary Rosington, maybe.
Yeah. See.
Yeah.
There's that story. But Paul just was so creative, and everything he did was just amazing. And again, the resentment that, but hey, he's doing this as one of the Beatles, and he's, no one else is trying to drive the bus, so let him, but John, I'm the leader of well, then lead, Dick, so this single, what's interesting, if you look up the A side and B side of Ballad of John and Yoko and Old Brown Shoe, side A has a group shot, and it says the Beatles, and here's 5 people on the cover of this single. Yoko right in front with her ugly ass, and then you flip it over, and Old Brown Shoe, another shot, Yoko right in front, and it's astounding to me. It says the Beatles on there, and here she's just.
You can see how that must have just driven them nuts.
I would have been absolutely not. Yeah. We're not having your girlfriend, wife, on we're the Beatles. It's the Fab Four. Yeah. Cock ass. It's the Fab Four. Not Fab Four, and here's this hairy bimbo. I can't do it. But just her audacity. During the Abbey Road sessions, a doctor told her, because she was pregnant, that she had to bed rest. So she has a bed set up in the studio with a mic suspended down, so she can make comments to the band.
This is like a Monty Python skit. This is a total Monty Python skit right there.
it's like there's no fucking way.
Yeah.
You know, she's got a bed there and has one of the electrician, engineers, suspend a mic so she can bitch at the band during the session. And the other, how it's got to be a British thing, because an American band would have been like, the fuck you are. Absolutely not. She says one more word, the baby's dead. You know,
we'll get Eric Burden in here. We don't need your ass.
Jesus Christ. So you mentioned Eric Burden. The Eggman is a reference. Apparently, there was a groupie that Eric Burden introduced to John, who loved to crack an egg over a hard penis and suck on it. So that was like a thing, and Eric Burden showed John that, and so John told everybody, "I am the Eggman. They are the Eggman." You know what that's from, but wow. So in the whirlwind that encircled the band, September 26th, 1969, they release Abbey Road, and this album is just another masterpiece. Yeah, another masterpiece. But this sets off October 10th, so just a few weeks later. A Detroit DJ, Russ Gibb, goes on the air, WKNR-FM, and states that Paul was dead. And so they dissect the cover of Abbey Road. They said Ringo's in a mortician outfit. Paul's barefoot. The license plate on this Beatle, it says 28 IF. And they're saying, oh, Paul would be 28 if. Yes. And then Magical Mystery Tour, they point out that Paul has a black carnation. The other guys have red carnation. Yeah. And then, of course, at the end of All You Need Is Love, I Buried Paul, and it is really saying cranberry sauce. But they had all this crazy shit. And again, growing up in a hippie household, I just hate all of this reference that Paul's dead and there's a make-believe guy, and
this is all from having too much free time because you don't want to go get a job because you're hippie.
Yes.
And too much weed. And then you just start. Obviously, they replaced him with such a better songwriter, because all these last three albums, Paul's songs are just spiking right up in quality. Yeah. So it's obviously not Paul.
Yeah,
it's a new guy who's a better songwriter than Paul.
You're not going to find another Paul McCartney.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Absurdity.
Right.
And the earth is flat, and
Yes. Oh, these flat earthers. Don't get me started. So John forms the Plastic Ono Band with Klaus Bormann, Eric Clapton, and Alan White. I believe Alan White was who they had come in and play Love Me Do back in the day.
No, that was Andy White. Different
Andy
guy.
White. Okay, different guy. Okay.
Different guy. Yeah, Alan White,
brother Andy.
Yes.
Yeah. They were that was the father and uncle of Jack White, by the way.
Gotcha.
The White Stripes.
I'm so glad you knew that, Alan, because I was like, is that the same drummer? And they play the live piece in Toronto.
They were the White cousins of Barry White, actually.
It's a good live album. John, they do a bunch of just 50s standards,
Well, that's side one, and you know what side two is?
Oh yeah. Yep. So by this point, John's just done being a Beatle. The dream is over, but they asked everyone to keep it quiet. And, so each of the band is just like, so much has gone on. You just want to escape. And meanwhile, Alan Klein comes in and wants to kind of rescue the songs from Let It Be.
Can we have Alan review Abbey Road, since we brought it up, and it's an amazing album?
Do that.
Abbey Road,
do that.
Yeah. I think it's a little weird, but it's my.
I was kind of gonna do Let It Be because they did that first, but yeah,
let's do them in the order they're released.
Do Abbey Road.
Sure. My third favorite, But I think it's their best album. I think this is just
Great album.
Yeah. And they knew that this was going to be it. I don't think it was so much said out loud, but they all knew,
Well, like you look at Van Halen, and they were done, and somehow they put out 1984, and that was like, it's not my favorite, but that was their,
it was a good one.
Really,
And
I love that album. Yeah,
they really crushed it with that, and it's just funny how these bands in all the chaos and nobody wants to even be in the same room, they manage to come together, the love of music,
come together.
Yep. And what a killer song that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just a great opener, right out of the gate. That's John, one of his best songs. And then Something. I mean, George's possibly his best song.
That song is so incredible that Elvis covered it.
Elvis covered it. Sinatra covered it.
Yeah,
that's
right.
It's my number 3 song.
Those are the two kings right there.
It's my number 3 Beatles song.
King of the Bobby Soxers and the King of Rock and Roll.
Yeah.
Chairman of the board.
Yeah, I love Sinatra's song because he sings it in his style, and he sings the part where it's you stick around, now it may show Jack. Jack.
Hey.
Jack.
I need to hear that again.
There was I think it was a Ted Templeman book. The guy who produced Van Halen talks about his life as a producer and an engineer, and he was an engineer on Sinatra recording and on an Elvis recording. And he said those are the two only singers he saw that just walk in the studio, nail it perfectly on the first take, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Elvis and Sinatra apparently
they didn't fuck around. They knew before they got there what they wanted, and brother, you better hang on and get it right, or you're the fuck out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing.
On the super deluxe version of Abbey Road that I got, I think it was released in 2019.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of instrumental tracks, and the instrumental track for Something, it's George Martin strings. Right. And you don't even realize it so much when you listen to the regular song, but when you hear it by itself, it's just beautiful. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Number 3, Maxwell Silver Hammer. This is Paul having a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I know John hated this song.
Didn't he drive them nuts just re-recording it over and over again and trying to get it? Right. Yeah, I've heard stories that he basically kept them working on this song way longer than they should have. Like they were all, this is a silly song, let's move on, and he just wouldn't let it go.
Well, I know John doesn't perform on several tracks on Abbey Road, which I did not realize.
Yeah, he was not quite into. I mean, what he is on is tremendous, but yeah. I mean, again, they all, it wasn't like the old days when they were doing, Please Please Me and With the Beatles. They would all show up 10 o'clock in the morning on the dot, ready to go.
Yeah. And they're playing to each other, and now it's just
everybody brings in their own demo and works it up into a song, and if so and so's here, he'll play on it. If not, whatever.
Yeah.
So I just a funny story with John. He brought, when they finished the album, he brought a tape of it over to Bob Dylan to play it for him, but he left off Maxwell Silverhammer.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did not like that song. The rest of them were not fond of it. That was his Revolution number 9, I guess, but I like it. It's a fun song.
No, it's PC 31 says we've caught a dirty one, and I just and that little noise, that in the background, and
a fun song. Oh Darling, this is a great Paul song, and as I have heard, he went into the studio every day. The first thing he would do was do a take of this song, him and the piano, he did it for like 2 weeks straight to get the right take, because he screams so much on this song.
Oh yeah.
I know John wanted to do it. He thought he could scream better than Paul, but this was maybe the only time Paul won a fight between the two of them, and he got to sing the song. Well, it was his song anyway, so.
Right.
Yeah.
The guitar on that, just that real herky jerky stop start stuff, and then the down the fret and back, just in high school we went to a performing arts school, and me and Elizabeth Brackman did this scene where she sang the song. She lip synced to the, we actually played the song, and she does this whole dramatic thing, like she's on the edge of the stage screaming into the mic. And to upstage her, there's a stool, and I'm doing all this air guitar. And at one point, I just leap up and land with my knees on the stool. And we used to do the, from your center, you would just make this like abnormally high leap in drama class, and we all did it. You would train yourself to just jump and get your feet under your knees onto whatever you were jumping up on. And so I would just do this abnormally high jump onto this stool while still air guitaring and the song's playing, and everyone was pissing themselves at this absurd leap that I did. And she thinks they're all, laughing at her as she's doing this thing. But that song, to this day, I'll go back to that magic moment in high school where we did this performance.
Nice.
So yeah, that's a great song.
Yes, and then Octopus's Garden. Ringo wrote this all by himself, and it's really about an octopus's garden. He was out on this boat, and somewhere, I don't know where, but the captain of the boat was explaining to him all the behaviors of the octopus, and apparently they do.
They collect little shiny things,
shells or whatever, and they make them. They decorate their little home, or whatever. And
I think they're far more intelligent than we give them.
Right?
Oh, they're in control for sure.
Oh yeah, they know what's going on.
Yeah. So Ringo, I mean, just a tremendous song by Ringo, and I believe he still sings it when he tours.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. And then at the end of side one, I Want You, She's So Heavy. By John.
Scorcher. Fucking killer. Scorcher.
Absolute killer.
Yeah.
And then and the way it ends, it just abruptly, they cut the tape.
Yeah.
And it just stops on a dime, and that's the end of side one.
It leaves you wrung out, is what it does.
Yeah, right.
It's like, oh my God, I can't believe there's 9 more songs.
So Flip It Over, and again, just one of I think it's the best song on the album.
I think this and While My Guitar Gently Weeps, in my opinion, are his 2 best songs.
Yeah.
And this is just a masterpiece of a song. He waits, and this is the last, as you guys mentioned, this is the last album they recorded. He waits to the very last album they record to drop one of his like top 2 or 3 songs ever.
Yeah.
I really would have liked 1 or 2 more Beatle albums where a lot of All Things Must Pass see the light of day on a Beatles record with Paul there, or John, some of their input. And you could actually tailor a few Beatles albums where you take just each of their first several albums and make find a really kick-ass Ringo song, a John, and have a cohesive, badass record.
I've seen people have done that on the Beatles Reddit forum. People have already done that. Now here's the next couple albums after the last Beatles,
and it's
they
all
just
from
piece together stuff from their solo albums. Yeah.
I'd like to check that out. You know,
Yeah.
it'd be a fun project to make yourself based on what you like.
Yeah.
And just the strongest tracks.
Yep.
Ringo's very first solo album comes out during all this, and it's basically songs that his mother liked and stuff. A very different type of album, but it's almost like a swing jazz type thing. And there's some stuff where you're like, what the hell is this? But then there's a couple, because Ringo, they all thought when the Beatles broke up that Ringo would instantly fade into obscurity. And he actually had the most prolific records and Photograph was a great record. He actually had some good songs, bizarrely.
Yeah, I think everybody was they were all like John and Paul be fine. But the questions were, what are George and Ringo going to do?
Ringo make money for the rest of his life, it turns out, touring and singing Beatles songs. But let's get back to this side of Abbey Road. So tell us what you think about Here Comes the Sun.
Here Comes the Sun. Just it's I think is this my third? No, I don't know. This is on my spreadsheet. I think it's in my top 10. Here Comes the Sun is number 9. Yeah. Just a phenomenal song by George. And it's my favorite song on the album. I mean, it just makes you feel good. I mean, I think every time you hear it, I don't know how you couldn't come away feeling better somehow.
Mm-hmm. Very meditative, just a beautiful tune.
Yeah.
And again, we grew up with it as a little boy. I love that song. It was,
the guitar riff. It's just and actually it's since streaming came along, this is the most streamed Beatles song.
Wow,
really?
That's interesting.
I didn't know that.
Which surprised me as well.
Did Elvis cover "Here Comes the Sun"?
That I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah. And then because, and this is really just them harmonizing on a John song. It's just beautiful. Mm-hmm. And on Anthology 3, they have just the vocal tracks.
Yes.
Which is just crazy.
That's reminiscent of some of the harmonies that the Beach Boys, there's a couple Beach Boys box sets where there's no music and it's just you hear they're harmonizing and you get it. If you didn't like the Beach Boys before and you hear that, you're like, get the fuck out. How are it's so amazing.
Brian Wilson was a genius.
Yeah.
And I believe the guitar riff that opens because it's some sort of Bach piece played backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Does it say Paul is dead if you play it forward?
It does, yeah, right. Yeah, no, we're way past that, I guess. And then the album just seems to take on a life of its own from this point. Every song seems to flow into the next. And it's just, to me, it's like the Beatles saying, okay, here you go. We're just going to rock your world for the rest of the album. You never give me your money. By Paul literally telegraphing what's going on with the Beatles, and all the the BS
on the nose.
between them all. And it's funny. It's almost like it reminds me of Fleetwood Mac, after, Lindsay and Stevie Nicks joined and they did that album Rumors, and everybody's sleeping with everybody else and breaking up. And yet somehow they make this album singing about it all. And they do it. And it's just tremendous, So anyway, this is Paul airing their dirty laundry.
Yeah. All anti-Alan Klein, basically.
Anti-Alan Klein, yeah. That was one thing. I think that could have been the straw.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it was the first time Paul said, up until that point, if there was any major decision to be made, it had to be 4-0.
All for one.
all for one. If there was any dissent, it wasn't done. Well, this time he didn't want to be with Alan Klein. It was 3 versus 1.
And this was an argument that lasted 2 years. It just
It's what broke up the Clash. Same thing. It's a toxic manager.
Wow.
Bernie Rhodes.
So this is Paul basically saying, it's maybe his version of Help,
Yeah.
So then, now Sun King, a dreamy John song. On the Love soundtrack, they do this. They do the backwards, right? Nick Nuss.
Yeah.
Right. You had that.
Yeah.
It's fun to listen to backwards. Absolutely.
Yeah. And this has like this mush mouth Italian. They're not really saying anything.
Oh, right. They start singing. And, almost like pidgin Spanish or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But they're not really saying anything.
Right. And now we get into the fun. Mean Mr. Mustard.
Yeah.
It's John, making up a character, and then rolls right into Polythene Pam.
And they're jamming. They're just
yeah.
You mean these whole? I consider these next, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up until the end, almost like a medley.
Yeah, it's like it is.
It is definitely the medley. Mr. Mustard, and then they go into it. It's like a roller coaster.
She came in through the bathroom window. A true story of a girl breaking into Paul's house.
Oh yeah,
coming through the bathroom window. And Joe Cocker does a really good version.
Yeah, I think that's on his first solo album.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, just a great version. And again, Paul, for the next two are just Paul at his best, Golden Slumbers and Carry That Weight, the way they go into each other and repeat.
Just chills with Golden Slumbers. It's just incredible.
Somewhere there's some documentary where they show John Lennon at his house in New York, and some homeless paranoid freak shows up. And he's there because he's convinced that they wrote Carry That Weight about him.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And
that was in Imagine.
Imagine.
Yeah, that was in England. I think that was in England.
In England, yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah. And John's just like, no, man, we're just writing about, and you want a cup of tea?
I'm like, get your stank ass off my property.
He was very gracious to that guy. Yeah. He brought him breakfast. Yeah. But anyway, I saw Paul McCartney in concert in '89 on his Flowers in the Dirt tour.
Mm-hmm.
Just, a phenomenal show. I mean, just it's something I'll never forget.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm bringing it up because he ended the show with the medley of Golden Slumbers, Carry That Weight, and The End.
Wow.
And just blowing everybody away. Just fantastic. And The End just has that great, I think it's Paul, George, and John all on their guitars just trading licks.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like back in the day when it was just the three of them playing guitars without a drummer or a bass.
Yeah.
In their mind, that was the last track on the last album.
Yeah.
What's haunting is Paul's thing, and in the end, the love you make. In that ending line almost just encapsulates everything that they wanted to say over 14 albums, 5 movies, 7 Christmas singles.
No, yeah, I completely agree. It was just a way to wrap it up in a nice bow. The love you take is equal to the love you make.
Yeah.
You guys may remember Chris Farley on Saturday Night Live interviewing Paul McCartney.
No.
You never saw that?
Oh, no. So. We'll have to look it up on YouTube.
Yeah,
Hip us to what went down.
Oh, the Chris Farley show. I mean, if you ever, he had a few of them where he would just sit there, and he was like the worst talk show host ever.
Right.
I mean, literally, his first question to Paul is, "Do you remember when you were with the Beatles?"
Jesus Christ.
But anyway, it's just hilarious. And
Right.
at the end of it, he said, "Okay, so on the album Abbey Road, you say the love you take is equal to the love you make. Is that true?" And Paul says, "Yeah, I think it's really the more you give, the more you get. It's all that kind of thing.
Sure.
And then Chris Farley is just in his glory, that he pulled off a good question or whatever. So
he was a genius. I my favorite will always be, you think I care? I live in a van down by the river.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he had them dying too. That was a brutal scene for those guys.
Oh.
Anyways, Her Majesty, you want to say anything about the hidden track?
Yeah, Her Majesty was originally, it came after, I think at the end of Mean Mr. Mustard or Polythene.
Yeah, that got accidentally cut off.
And then as they were listening back to something, it just, it came back on. And they were like, "Oh, whoa, let's make that the coda or whatever."
Yeah. John basically tells them, I'm out.
I want to
fuck off. And Paul, always being for the band, just slowly kind of realizes that everyone has moved on. Ringo releases that solo record I was talking about. George goes and plays with Bonnie and Delaney, who were touring with Eric Clapton. Paul records his first solo record.
George, who didn't want to do the live concert, first thing he does is go on tour.
Buddy,
Yeah.
Clapton was his buddy. George would go see Led Zeppelin all the time. He would hover backstage. I think he liked that part of it. And then they got him to come out and play, which led to him doing the Tibet thing.
Bangladesh, you mean? Concert for Bangladesh. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so Paul records his first solo record. Now, Alan, you're a musician. You can kind of channel into this a little bit. Imagine what he goes through here. He gets a telegram from the other three that his record needs to be pushed back due to Let It Be, the album and the movie coming out. And they're like, "Oh yeah, you push your little album thing back. We need to do this for the Beatles because we don't want any confusion or and they basically tell him, you can't put your album out. And
that is exactly like when the U.S. Godzilla movie producers made Toho delay Godzilla -1 just now.
Yeah.
For Godzilla versus Kong.
So before that madness was said, Paul has to, he calls Apple, is like, "You guys can't do this to me," and they're like, "Well, we're gonna do it." And so wouldn't you just be enraged beyond description?
Apoplectic, maybe.
Just like, how do you even speak? And the betrayal and all of it. So I get it. Jealousy where Paul is merely trying to just keep it in the road. I think he cared too much, possibly overstepping, and John's drug and obsession with Yoko, all the lawyer bullshit. It should have, like I said before, it should have been a 2 or 3 year hiatus.
Yeah, that would have been
let's
Again, Brian Epstein, he may have been able to save it. He may have been able. I don't know.
It's so tough because Brian literally just in a ball of flame. I mean, he just was into getting smacked around and all the drugs and the shame and humiliation of being gay, just the self-imposed. That's a whole other, I don't know what that would be like,
Yeah. I mean, There,
stuff.
Oh, it was a different time.
Yeah. So John left the band, but Paul left publicly, which I think, even though it's over, him putting out this kind of questionnaire on his album, McCartney gets really in the gatefold is like this letter where he reveals that we're done.
Yeah.
Publicly. But it's funny is that pissed John off. And it's like,
that really pissed him off because John.
What do you want, John?
Yeah. Well, John, I mean, he thought, again, it was his band. It was his to disband it, which he did at a meeting. I don't remember the exact date or what they were meeting about, but I believe Paul was really kind of cheerleading, trying to get them, he's like, look, why don't we get back on the road? Just get back to basics. Let's just reset, basically.
Yeah.
And John said, I think you're daft.
This is a divorce, is what he said.
I want a divorce. He said, I want a divorce. At that point, he was like, I wasn't going to say anything, but as long as you're, going down this road.
Was this meeting before Paul released the letter in his album?
Oh, yeah.
Well, then
and
what
that
the
was
fuck,
what
man?
pissed John
Chill
off.
out. I know.
That was what pissed John
you
off.
already divorced. You already divorced him.
But he wanted the credit. John wanted the credit.
John wanted to do it in his own time.
Paul got a headline. Paul quits the Beatles.
Right. Well, the way it's remembered historically is John left because of Yoko. That's how it's remembered historically. So,
John's able to say that's Paul being Paul, and I think to stand on the outside of it, it's like, well, dude, what do you want? You left. I'm merely saying it's over. So it's almost like John wanted the control, and maybe in a year they would have, but because Paul did that just ended it. The possibility. I do think mid 80s, at least by the 90s, they might have done something. But what I pondered today, making all these notes, how many times just pillow talk did John maybe go, what if we, and I'm just positive that Yoko continued to, jerk that chain a little bit. No.
I could really piss you off now because I don't know if you've seen the movie, The Lost Weekend, the May Pang movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, there's a moment in that movie where, if you remember, she says that right at the time that John was ending it with her, he was scheduled, like he had planned to go to New Orleans to meet Paul to start writing songs with him again.
Yeah.
But then Yoko came in and said, no, you're coming back to New York.
Yeah.
And what year was this?
This was like 75.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So we're just over 2 hours, and we haven't gone through Let It Be yet, which is one of the 3 awesome albums they did in this era. Why don't we do that? Kind of go through each track. Alan, you can lead us through that, and then
Let It Be. I mean, I like the album. It seems to be almost like a throwback to their earlier albums because again, it just seems like there's no overall theme. It's just a collection of songs.
This is like the very first unplugged record.
Yeah. Right.
Like just raw in the studio.
Right, because they didn't want that. There's no overdubs. It's just them
They
playing.
were getting back to rocking.
So two of
makes
us.
it so great.
Yeah. 2 of us. I always thought it was a Paul song about him and John doing.
Yeah, and I thought 2 of Us was something that they'd written back in 59, 60 or
It sure sounds
but apparently
like that.
not.
It was about Paul and Linda. It was just about Paul and Linda. Yeah. But a great, a good song. Dig a Pony. I love this song by John. It's just, another, just nonsense.
Yeah, probably created on the cuff, right
Yeah.
there.
Then across the, from the ridiculous to the sublime, across the universe. A great John song, great lyrics.
Cosmic, just such an incredible tune.
Yeah. I Mean Mine. This is a waltz by George, and you can see John and Yoko waltzing in Let It Be.
Yes.
To it.
To this day, anybody that's just so greedy, and I always sing this. Mine.
Mine. Yeah, George was ahead of his time with this one. I think.
Tremendous.
Really, yeah.
There was a lot of that going on, though, I think, between them and Alan Klein and all that. It's probably also a commentary.
Oh, yeah.
It's very, very pointed. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, this is his You Never Give Me Your Money.
Yep.
Problem.
Yep.
Dig It. This was just a jam that they were doing with Billy Preston in the studio. Yeah. And Phil Spector just clipped what he thought was the best part of it.
This is another Wild Honey Pie, I think.
Wild Honey. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then Let It Be, a pretty good song.
Yeah, it's all right.
This is another masterpiece this cat dropped.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Mother Mary, that's his actual mother that he's
he's singing about his mother. It always chokes me up because that's the thing that I think initially drew Paul and John together. They both lost their mother at such a tender age.
Right. And I believe, he said that when he wrote this, it was a dream he had when, all this shit's going down, the Beatles are breaking up. It's just one thing after another. And he had a dream where his mother came to him and she just said, let it be. It'll be all right.
Uh-huh.
And he woke up and then he wrote that song. So,
wow.
Maggie May. This is an old skiffle.
Yeah.
Quarryman.
Dirty Maggie May.
Yeah, right. About a prostitute that robbed some John.
The Homeward Bound,
and she got thrown in jail for that, or something like that. Anyway,
dirty, no good Robin, Maggie May.
Yeah, a little sea shanty. Something.
Love it.
Yep. I've Got a Feeling is my favorite song on the album. It's because it's John and Paul combining, one song.
Another song that rocks.
Yeah, it's a John song and a Paul song, and you put them together and you get I've Got a Feeling. The way they sing that song going back and forth, they're both singing their parts of the song at the same time. It's great.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal one. Now, One After 909 is one of the first songs they wrote together.
Quarrymen, yeah, for the Quarrymen, yep, exactly, yeah, another throwback. And then you get another classic. Now here, probably the most controversial, as far as Paul's concerned, The Long and Winding Road. He couldn't stand that Phil Spector added the strings.
Oh yeah, they sent that to him. Yeah. He didn't know that they had rescued the Let It Be tracks. They sent him a reel-to-reel of it, and he is just livid.
Yeah, he was not happy. He never worked with Phil Spector.
Yeah. So the Let It Be Naked album has the original version, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
That, and I didn't put that on the playlist only because everything else is, and I was going to mention it, but
that's the despectorized version, right? And there's also a despectorized version of All Things Must Pass too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yep.
I have to look for that.
Right. And then For You Blue, a great little George song.
Yeah.
George
really came into his own after Revolver.
Oh yeah. George was ready to leave, I think, at any point after
he'd written so many good songs that nobody gave him a chance to, that's what All Things Must Pass is.
Yeah, All Things Must Pass. All of a sudden, everything he had written just, comes out all at once. And then it ends with Get Back. And again, this is the first Beatles song I remember hearing in my life. My older cousins had the 45 of Get Back. And I just loved it.
It's an amazing tune. Really fun to sing. Totally rocks. Great way to go out.
Yeah, and this is where the cops show up on the roof, but they
Right.
leave him alone. They just leave, they just
It's the
On
Beatles.
on
Let's just
the deluxe version, they do give you the great recording of Rocker and Save the Last Dance for Me. They did Teddy Boy, a couple other kind of old standard jams. Good stuff.
yeah. So yeah, that's Let It Be. That pretty much wraps up everything they released while they were together anyway.
Yeah.
then there's two songs after, right? Free as a
Yeah, the
Bird and Now and
singles.
Then.
So I'll cover that. I did. That's what I was going to do now.
Do it.
So you've got. Let me get to it here. Abbey Road. After Abbey Road, there was a worldwide wildlife release. It was a charity album.
Right.
And the Beatles donated across the universe to it. So there was a single of that song with birds,
right,
nature sounds on it, which was different. It's a cool way to hear the song. But once all that beginning intro stuff, it's the same song. And then there was a single of Let It Be. And then this is one of my all-time favorite Beatles songs. I would almost put this at number one for its obscurity is You Know My Name, Look Up the Number.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
I've loved this song since I was a tiny kid. It played right into my sense of humor at 5-6 years old. All the different voices and the changes of how they and earlier, one of the playlists, I did the original one, and then the actual released one is this one from Past Masters.
Oh yeah.
Brian Jones plays sax here.
Yes, he does.
Phenomenal. So then you've got the Let It Be album, and then the rooftop performance I added on here, just so you could hear it that way. And then Free as a Bird from Anthology 1. This was the first Beatles song that you would hear in, 20 years, 22 years.
At least.
And then Real Love is another John song. There's a version of Real Love, I believe, on the Imagine soundtrack.
Yes, there is. Yep.
And then this version has the other Beatles with it,
exactly,
which is cool. And then we've got a couple from Anthology 3, Mailman, Bring Me No More Blues, Ain't She Sweet, and the Anthology 3 version of The End, which was different. And it's really, then you've got the Love album, which we sort of talked about. To me, this was a love letter to all the Beatles fans. It's a great journey through from track 1 to the last, and it was done for Cirque du Soleil.
Yeah, the Vegas show, right?
Yeah, which I would love to see that. There's a DVD of this, but it's just like a making of the album, which is a real shame because not all of us can get out to Vegas, and I'm sure it's gone now.
They literally just closed it last month.
Are you kidding me? It's run all this. Oh my God.
I never saw it either. It's another regret. Yeah, I never got to see it
because I'd just like to see what they did. Make a damn film version of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure it's filmed.
It's got to be.
And then so the very last song called Now and Then, which I have been like, I knew at the time they said, even back in 93 when the anthology, that there were 3 songs that they did. And so you had Free as a Bird and Real Love. And you're like, okay, where's this other song? And, it never surfaced until last year, Now and Then,
Right.
final
Right.
thing.
That's because when they were doing anthology, the technology didn't exist where they could separate John's voice from his piano on that little cassette tape that
Gotcha.
he had. And
So
when
with the power of AI, they were able to.
Peter Jackson, when Peter Jackson made the Get Back thing, he somehow had that technology worked out where you could separate vocals from the film. So somebody, I don't know who it was, it just dawned on them, hey, let's send that cassette over to Peter Jackson. Sure enough, he extracts John's voice, and it sounds like he just made that recording in the studio with them. It's phenomenal.
And I mean, it's a great song. It's not earth shattering, but I love it. I got more.
Yeah, I was skeptical. I got to tell you,
yeah.
During the hype, I'm like, oh God, please don't let it suck. I just didn't want it, but I got to tell you, it really affected me in a personal way because it was released in early November of last year. And in late November of last year, a very good friend of mine passed away. And she would have loved the song. And she was somebody that I would go visit. And I definitely would have said, hey, Lainey, there's a new Beatles song. And she would have been like, oh my God, what are you talking about? And, she would have ate it up. Anyway, to wrap it up, I wound up playing the song on my guitar at her memorial service. So that song has a really, really deep connection with me, even though it was just released last year. I mean, it just really,
that hits home because my dad passed January of 23. And when this song came out, I thought, oh my God, my dad would have loved to have heard this. So I kind of had that same thought.
Yeah.
But so again, 63 to 1970, 14 albums, 4 movies and a TV show, 7 Christmas singles. My parting thing with the Beatles to anyone listening this far, to all the 3 episodes, check out the Red and Blue albums.
Yeah.
There's been a 2023 remix, and they extended the albums. They added some more things, and they're just fun. It's just a great collection. Even I'm sure you've had all the albums multiple ways, different formats, box sets, that kind of thing. But these 2 being remixed, it's just fun to hear what they put on them, and take the journey one more time. Revisit old friends, each song, something that by heart. And they just do a really good thing with those. And then the Love album, you're going to hear Beatles songs a different way, reimagined, if you will, but they're just so good. And then I would tell anybody to see the anthology, that whole series. Such a great history, played out visually for you to really see what was all about. And then the CDs have great things. I will say the first volume has them talking in between. I think they got a lot of complaints about that. So volume 2 and 3 is just music.
You think Peter Jackson could separate out the talking on the first one?
Well, what you do with the first one, if you're going to make a playlist or so, is what I did with the playlist. I included the songs and not the talking. So these 3 playlists for these last 3 shows gives you an entire journey of all the Beatles in a fairly chronological thing. So any parting words, Alan?
Yeah, I guess, to wrap it up, I mean, I looked at all the quotes that each one of them had about, their parting thoughts about the group. And I guess I got to go with Paul's. I mean, he was just really glad.
Can you read all 4 of them?
Oh, sure, I could. Yeah, Ringo. Yeah. So Ringo says, we were 4 guys that really loved each other, and it was, pretty sensational. I mean, that's how he wrapped it up. George, they gave their money and they gave their screams, but the Beatles kind of gave their nervous systems.
Mm.
John was a little bit, just took everything with a grain of salt. John, it's just natural. It's not a great disaster. If people keep talking about it like it's the end of the earth. It's just a rock group that split up. It's nothing important. You have all the old records there if you want to reminisce.
So to jump off of that, somebody asked Stephen King about how all of his movies are terrible. The adaptations are terrible. And he got defensive. Like, the books weren't mauled or changed. If you like the books, don't see the movie, lighten the fuck up.
Shining was a great movie.
Yeah. But he hated that for, I get his reasoning.
Yeah, whatever. Hunter Thompson hated Where the Buffalo Roam, and that's a classic.
Yeah, that's a classic. But yeah, so, for me, the Beatles just changed everything. And to meet someone today that says, I hate the Beatles. It's like, you haven't listened to the Beatles, so go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
So on that note, let's hear what Paul's final thoughts were.
Paul, he said, I'm really glad that most of the songs dealt with love, peace, understanding, just everything had a good spirit behind it. Mm-hmm. They weren't trying to destroy anything or convince anybody to, do anything bad or anything like that. It was all about love, peace and love. Mm-hmm. I think that really just sums it up for the Beatles. It's just a great,
even their pro-drug songs are kind of, blended to possibly mean something else.
Yeah. Well, they're also, weed is a pretty peaceful and loving drug. It's not like they're singing about crack.
Cracker.
Yeah. No, but some of the heroin-based stuff, and but you if you don't know, you just think it's whatever. But yeah,
even Helter Skelter was a song about a slide.
They were very positive. And timeless. Like, you can put them on now, and it's just as great.
Well, there you go. I'm still learning things about them. It's just amazing how it's always fresh. There's always something new to find. Yeah, it's just great. They're the best.
And they changed the world in the process.
They really did.
Alan, thank you for coming on and tolerating us for 3 episodes. It's been awesome.
This meant a lot to me because this band is so important, and I dreaded even starting these 3 episodes because I didn't want it to not be. And I think all of us really came with all the in the event that no one's ever heard them and just listened to these 3 shows.
Right.
I think we did our best.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And if it was just us 2 knuckleheads, it would have been not good enough. So
no, we wouldn't have had some of the stuff you added, Alan. It means a lot that you knew you brought the knowledge you did.
I appreciate it. I think that this was my calling. To be able to just talk about the Beatles with you 2. Like I said, I'm fanboy. I listen to all your podcasts. Just to be with you 2 talking about the Beatles is a dream come true. Just fantastic.
It all started with an email. Don't do a Beatles episode without me.
Don't even think about doing a Beatles. And if you do a John Lennon one, please.
We might. And any other, I was going to say this after we were done, but I'll say it publicly in front of everybody. Any other ideas you come up with, just hip us to it. And anybody else you want to cover, awesome. Zappa or any of those cats. So.
I've got all that. Yeah. If we did a John Lennon, there is a box set that's called Lennon, and they literally take out every Yoko.
Yeah.
And it's
it would be 100% Yoko free. We would actually, if we do a John Lennon episode, the rule is
it's a John Lennon episode.
We can't mention Yoko.
No.
That's
you really would just discuss each album. It could just be that. But what's great about that box set, and it's out of print, it's called Lennon, believe it was 4 or 5 CDs, and it's
Oh, yeah.
literally only the John Lennon songs
100% Yoko free.
on each
Yeah.
of those albums, and
Oh yeah,
it's such a great way to hear that.
Yeah.
That's what you can name the playlist that replicates that exactly when we do the do the episode. All right, we're coming up on 2.5 hours here. I think we don't want to put our audience to sleep. Whoever stuck with us this far. So let's rock on out of here. Thanks again, Alan. It's been freaking awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Silky, for making all the notes for these 3 episodes, killing yourself to get that book read.
I finished that book, by the way.
Great. The Bible, the Beatles Bible.
Bob Spitz, The Beatles, is an epic book. I thought Keith Richards' life book was big. This is a 900 and some page book, but
wow,
you can't. It's incredible. If you've not read it, it'll blow you away.
Yeah, I read that a couple of years ago. Probably the same year I read Life. I read both of those books in the same year. Yeah, great books. Great books.
Yeah.
Check that one out. Absolutely.
All right, peeps. Peace out.
Deuces.
Thank you, guys.